You went to work on DirectX. That was what you went there for.
Yes, I had met Bill Gates demoing Trespasser technology when we first had the physics system going with the sound hooked up, like Foley made by the physics system. So we had cans and stuff and a dinosaur standing there, and you could like throw cans at the dinosaur and tumble them down the hill, and they go in the water and make sounds. We showed this to Steve. He was so impressed by this. We showed this to Bill Gates. And he's so impressed by this, and he said, "Oh, you should come work at Microsoft." And so when all this went down, I was like, could I? And so I got an interview, and so I went to go interview, and I went through a programmer interview, which was terrifying because I interviewed at Microsoft with Mike Abrash, gave me a programming test. Yeah. Okay. And Todd Laney, these are legendary guys. Todd Laney wrote the kernel for Windows 3, okay? Somehow made it through there and ended up as program manager for entertainment graphics, whatever the hell that meant. And so I had this job, and it was weird. It was terrifying because I felt like I had to hide out. I felt like I hide away from the mess that I made. Really interesting time.
But during this, you wrote a pitch paper for, behind you, the original Xbox.
Well, Sony came out with this announcement of PlayStation 2, and they started saying, we're going to beat Windows. We're going to have Linux installed on this device, and it's going to be in your living room, and this is all you need for your email and all the stuff that you need in your house. And this was something which was taken fairly seriously at Microsoft, and I think, and I don't know if anybody is around Sony anymore who remembers this, but I think that the Sony PR guys or Sony ad guys didn't really understand how serious an attack this seemed like in Redmond.
Yeah.
I think it was just like, look, and it could do this too. Wouldn't that be cool? And in Redmond, it's like, they've declared war, So I'm sitting there as the program manager of entertainment graphics, and I now know the plans for all the graphics chips and the plans for DirectX and the plans for all the sound stuff and all the game interface and input stuff, right? And it's far ahead of anything Sony is ever going to do with PlayStation 2, and on a tighter time scale. And so I started thinking. I'm thinking I've shipped a lot of games on the PC. The thing that holds PC games back from not looking uniformly as good as console games is that every PC is different. It's like a goddamn Turkish bazaar. You have to support every possible thing for everything, and then you end up dumbing down your content in the game so that you're sure that all your customers can have a reasonable experience. And I had just delivered a totally unreasonable experience to a bunch of customers, so I understood this. And so one night, on a flight back from visiting my girlfriend who lived in Boston still, I had just got a new laptop, because Microsoft will get you a laptop.
Sure.
Some sort of new thing I ordered. And I had it shipped to her house because I was so excited about it, which was not cool. So she said, you can't open it while you're here. You can open it before your flight back. And I was like, all right, I'm sorry. And so I'm trying it out on the plane. What am I going to do? All right, well, you know what? Here's the thing. If we want to really screw Sony, we just need to define a standard. And no, it needs to be a hardware standard. Well, no, it can be an actual device. We can make an actual console. And it would be better because you can use all the tools on the PC, which are much better than the tools that are being used for PlayStation. And you can use all the developer equipment and stuff and all the methodologies and the architecture for the PC and the architecture for the GPUs is so much more advanced. And it's based on real research and real papers and real use case scenarios. And oh my God, we could kill them. This should be a console. So by the time I landed, I'm like, we need to make a console. And so I sent this thing to my friend Kevin, or called him, and it was freaking out at him. And we started inviting ourselves to meetings saying we should make a console. And we found guys at Microsoft who were thinking of making a web tablet for your refrigerator. And we said, no, you shouldn't do that. Look at the size of this game machine. And they're like, oh, shut up, kids, shut up, kids. And we were persistent, and we got more and more and more and more guys until finally we were in front of Bill. And I knew Bill because of DreamWorks. So I was able to figure out a way to get us in front of him. And he somehow still thought highly of me. So he believed me when I told him about graphic stuff. Other people said it was bullshit. He would say generally that, that he felt that our team, understood better and what should happen. And through some measure of just sheer bullshit, we were able to get through all of this. But it was okay because it wasn't real bullshit. It was the kind of thing you do when you have ignorant friends, and they're your friends, And they want the company to be successful, but they don't understand that there's this huge opportunity. So kind of for their own good, just tell them whatever they need to hear to feel good, because you're sure that you're going to do something that's going to make a lot of money, okay? And it's going to be really good for the organization. But maybe talking about it in a way that doesn't take into account their perspective is not going to really help you to get it done, if I can really equivocate the crap out of it. So that's what we did for a long time until it eventually worked.
So the Xbox was born at 35,000 feet, basically.
Yes, something like that. Maybe, yeah. And I think that there had been previous Microsoft game console things. There was a thing called the MSX. Microsoft had done or at that time was working on a version of Windows CE to go on Dreamcast. It didn't really go anywhere. There have been other discussions. So Microsoft was in many ways pregnant for this. And we were the right guys to show up with it. So if you look at it in modern terms, it's like Microsoft had the Friendster of video game console, it failed. It had a MySpace of video game console, it failed. And then we were the Facebook. Like we were at the right time with the right thing, and the battlefield had already been prepped, and it was good to go. But we didn't know that at the time. We thought we did it all ourselves. But of course, you never do it all yourself.
It started as it was the DirectX box.
Yes.
So.
Because
right. I mean, it makes sense.
It uses all the DirectX technology, but it's its own it's a box. It's its own platform. So it's the box that runs DirectX, the DirectX box. Now let's go find a name for it. Go hire naming experts. Go.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Naming.
So who? At what point did you guys just land on the code? Well, basically, the code name Xbox.
Yeah, everyone called it the code name, and people were terrified of the code name because in Japanese culture. Like if your wife is standing down the block and she's like checking to see if there are any reservations at the restaurant and there aren't, she'll hold up an X, which means no. And so we were really worried that the Japanese market, which was super important in games then, that we'd be making the no box. It's kind of like the Chevy Nova in Spanish-speaking countries, right? It's not a great decision. But yeah, it was a code word. And Kevin actually went out, and the first guy I ever showed this thing to went out and found naming experts. I remember, and came back with all these names. He'll know what they are, and they were really bad, some really bad names. But the terrifying thing was that at that point then, because it was such a big project, all of these guys, the clueless non-gamers, sorts of executive guys, were also getting this list of names, and that the problem was one of them was going to like this name a lot, and they were all going to decide it was a good idea.
Right.
And then it was going to be the fucking Pippin, and you got to be careful about this. And so I can't remember exactly what subterfuge, but Kevin played some subterfuge, and it was very effective, and the Xbox name got chosen.
So you like the Xbox name?
I can't tell anymore. I mean, it is what it is, and there's a.
It's worked out, right? It's obviously worked out just fine.
Well, when, and there are a small number of people who have this experience. It's a weird experience where a thing that occurs to you one day becomes like a global brand. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. That happens to everybody, Seamus.
No, but there are definitely, and it's a fairly large group, and it's a weird thing because you can't, everybody else that you talk to assumes that Xbox was discovered in a mine somewhere.
Yeah.
Said, oh, look, let's release this, and not that the decisions had to be made by people. It's the story I like to tell about Ed Log and Asteroids. So Ed is trying to figure out how to make the game end, and so he's like, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do this, maybe we should have 3 ships. Right, and so it's a thing that's invented by a person, but then 10 years later, it's like, well, of course, every game has 3 lives. Everyone has always known that, right? And so same thing is true with Xbox. The idea at the time of Microsoft making a game console was like a terrible joke. It was a joke that was so weird that it wasn't even a funny joke. It was just a weird joke, the kind where people change the subject and move away from you. It was that kind of a joke. And now it seems manifestly obvious that Microsoft does.
Right.
Not the case back then.